Today, Robert tries to take photos with good colors at a campfire. Raja wonders about what the switch to full frame could do to his speed lights. And I have an important announcement. This is Tips from the Top Floor episode 800 for Thursday, November the 23rd, 2017.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey, hello and welcome. It's Chris Marquardt. You're listening to Tips from the Top Floor, the longest running photography show on the planet. This is episode... Hold on. Funfair 800. 800 episodes. OMG. Well, okay. I think I'll fill up the 1,000 and then we'll look what we're doing from there. But yeah, 800 episodes. What a run. Okay, so let's see. What do we have on the show? This is a normal show. This is not a party kind of celebration thing. No, it's a regular show as usual. And I have Robert on the show asking about campfires. Raja has a question regarding his speed lights in conjunction with the new full frame camera. And I have an important announcement to make. Some of you might have already noticed because we did what I call a soft release of this. It's a new podcast. And I'm doing it together with someone else. I'll get to that after the first question.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for listening to this. I was recently taking some pictures at night around a campfire and noticed that all my photos were coming out with kind of a reddish-orange tint. I was in Aperture Priority mode, and I tried switching back over to just full auto for the camera, and noticed that it took pictures that were much more clear and full color. So I tried matching the settings in manual mode and couldn't get it. Just wondering what you thought I might be doing wrong there and how I might fix it post-production. Thanks.
Hey Robert, thank you for the question. That's not a hard fix. I think there's a misconception that you might be under, and that is the exposure. That's what your automatic Aperture Priority does, as opposed to the fully automatic setting. There are some somewhat automatic settings regarding exposure, not regarding the colors in your photo. So the exposure might be done in a different way depending on what setting you put it on. That's the settings typically on a DSLR and on many of the mirrorless cameras. It's a dial that has an M, an A, a P, an S, or a T on it. So those are exposure settings. And the exposure might influence the color rendition slightly because, well, if you overexpose it, you get weird artifacts. And if you underexpose it, you get weird artifacts too. So that might be one of the reasons. The other is, well, it's a simple thing. Has to do with the spectrum of the light, the color of the light. If you are outside in, let's say, cool afternoon, overcast day, the light is very cool. It is very, very bluish. And the light from a fire, and it doesn't matter if it's campfire or if it's a candle or a match, is very warm. And it's pretty much very, very far to the red side of the spectrum, the warm side of the spectrum. So white balance is the culprit here. And it is not the same as exposure. Now, what you're looking for on your camera is the white balance settings. That might have helped as well. And what the white balance setting does is it lets you shift the distribution of that spectrum that your camera sees. The camera has a red, a green, and a blue channel. And red is on the warm side of the spectrum, blue is on the cold side of the spectrum, green is somewhere in the middle. So the moment you shift the white balance, and I'll tell you in a second how to do this, you shift the white balance to a different setting, the balance between these color channels in your camera will be changed. Now again, a fire is super warm as opposed to like an overcast afternoon, which is very cool in terms of the light color, the tint of the light, let's put it that way. The technical term for it is color temperature. You could Google that. Now, there are two things that you can do about this. And the first is in camera, and that is to change the white balance in the camera. If you take your camera manual and look for white balance, you will find symbols that you will find on the camera. There's a little sun, a little light bulb, a little cloud, a little house with shade, a little fluorescent tube. And those are there to set your white balance. Now, if the light that you shot in was warm, you want to set it to one of the warmer light sources on that, on those symbols. So, for example, in warm light, the one that is probably most closest to the warm campfire is an incandescent light bulb. So the little light bulb symbol is the one that might give you a better, or should give you a better result here, because it takes a bit of the warmth out, makes it a bit more natural. The same way, if you are on an overcast day on the outside, set it to the little cloud symbol, and that will make sure that it's not too cold, that it's kind of a bit more neutral, not fully neutral, but a bit more. The second way to fix this is later on your computer. You can do this in whatever software you use. Most image manipulation software, image editing software. Lightroom is an example. Apple Photos is an example. There are others. Will allow you to change that white balance afterwards. All you have to do is find the white balance slider. There's a slider somewhere. Might be called color or tint, but often called white balance. And you might see a little slider that goes from something yellowish to something blue. And in this case, you want to slide that further towards the blue side of things. If everything comes out way too red, slide it a bit to the blue and watch what happens to your photo on the screen. Now, here's a pro tip. If you shoot in RAW, this will be easier to fix than if you shoot in JPEG. It will just look better at the end. There's more information in RAW, and correcting a JPEG after the fact, that kind of works, but you're likely to see some artifacts there. And you can often avoid those when you use RAW. And the second pro tip, I guess this is probably the most important tip of all of those, after you're done setting your white balance in camera, set it back to where it was before. There's a good chance it was on AWB. It's called automatic white balance. That's where the camera tries to figure out the light source on its own and correct for it automatically. And that works, but sometimes it doesn't, as you have seen with the campfire. And otherwise, when you shoot the next day during daylight and you didn't set it back, there's a very good chance that there's a good, that everything is going to have a very strong blue tint. So set it back to automatic white balance. All right, before we get to the announcement, here's a quick word from this week's sponsor, Canvas People. You know how I shoot a lot of photos when I travel to Bhutan or to Norway or to other places on this planet, and I take a lot of photos with my bigger cameras, I take a lot of photos with my smartphone, and a lot of them just sit there. Now, instead of letting that beautiful photo you took rot on your cell phone, you can bring it to life with Canvas People. CanvasPeople.com is a really easy to use photo to canvas service that takes your favorite photo memories and turns them into beautiful artwork for you to enjoy every day. Hang them on the walls of your home, office, or give them as a gift. They're perfect for preserving all those family memories. Better yet, all canvases are high quality and made in the United States with fast shipping and great attention to detail. And with over 1 million customers served, you can buy with confidence. Now, of course, here's a special deal for you. Normally, 11 by 14 canvases are priced at $69.99. But now, for a limited time, you can get a free 11 by 14 canvas. You just pay the shipping. Yep, that's free as in beer. Simply use the promo code TOPFLOOR to take advantage of this offer. That's canvaspeople.com and promo code TOPFLOOR for a free 11 by 14 canvas. And I thank them for the support. All right, let's get to the announcement. I know you're all waiting for this. And for that, I have a guest on the show. It's Adrian. Adrian Stock, or Aid. Why are you here? What are you doing?
Why am I here? Oh, that's a philosophical question. I thought I was here just to promote our new podcast.
Which is true. So astute listeners have heard Aid on the show before. The episode about the phalluses in Bhutan, which we recorded together. And
that was fun.
That was fun, yeah. And we have since decided to create a new podcast, to do a podcast, a kind of a little spin-off thing, and It is well, it's a spin-off of both Tips from the Top Floor and your podcast, the Sunny 16 podcast, and it's called.
It's called The Future of Photography.
And the way this came to be is that we were together on the Bhutan tour, and we ended up, like, almost every day we ended up nerding out about developments in photography, about where things were going, about what might be coming up in the future. And at one point we looked at each other and went, shouldn't we make this into a podcast?
Yeah, we figured our conversations were interesting enough to share with other people, I think. Which
we hope is true.
Which we hope is true, but also we hope that it's going to grow into a wider conversation. One of the wonderful things about podcasting for me is the building of relationships and friends and the community around it, and the wider conversation that spawns. And for me, the future of photography as a podcast is an opportunity for us to identify and research and talk about new emerging things. Sometimes, we've had a couple of episodes now which were really sciencey, and a couple which were really about toys. And
Sure.
There's a blend in there somewhere, and there's a conversation I would like to have with a whole wider selection of people over time.
And it's, for me, it is. Yes, it is definitely something that that kind of forces me into looking into new developments. It also helps me learn a lot about things, because every time I try to explain something to someone else, that's probably where I learn most. And the way we set this up at this point is that we explain things to each other. So I research something, you research something, and then in an episode we try to convey what that is and what it might mean for the future of photography in an episode. That's the format for now. We'll see how it emerges, how it develops. But yeah, it's called The Future of Photography. It is available wherever you get your other podcasts. So if you're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, that's where you find it, or in your podcatcher of choice. And of course, also at thefutureofphotography.com. Yeah, love to have you there. Let us know what you think. There's ways to contact us on the website, thefutureofphotography.com. And yeah, let us know. We're experimenting. This is a bit of an open playing field at this point, but I think we're starting to get something interesting together, and we'd love to have you as a listener.
A listener and as a participant in the wider conversation, So,
Definitely.
Please feel free to hit us both up on Twitter. Always happy to talk on Twitter and on other social media as well. And it would be great to have people subscribe, listen, enjoy, and participate.
All right, let's together explore the future of photography. Thanks, Adrian.
A pleasure.
There you have it. A new baby is born. A new podcast is out. It's not that I'm not making enough podcasts already. I think it's number 8 now. But hey, it's just I have a problem. I need an intervention for sure. But hey, no, this is really something that I've for the longest time wanted to explore in more depth. Where's photography going? Especially as on the other end of the spectrum, I explore where photography has come from with all the film photography. And this is just a logical conclusion to go forward and, just do a bit of, look at the developments in photography and how they can benefit us. Because it's not everything is bad, right? There's lots of good stuff happening out there. And I think it's worth having a special look at it. So go out and everyone now, pause this podcast in your podcatcher, click on the little search icon, magnifying glass, and enter The Future of Photography and subscribe. You will recognize there's a little funny little robot with a camera head on a turquoise background. So it should be easy to spot. And yeah, subscribe to it, listen to a few episodes. The first, I think 4 are out right now. We're busy working on new episodes, and we will release those every week. The first 3 have been recorded back in Kathmandu, so they're a bit all over the place. But I think it's starting to come together with the 4th episode, and I would be really happy to get some feedback from you guys. Even audio, send in audio. voice@tfttf.com is a good place to send in audio. You can also send in audio for the show, for The Future of Photography. This will not change Tips from the Top Floor at all. Okay, this show here is going to be this show, and it will continue. But this is an additional thing. This is a new thing, and I love having a very focused look at where photography is going. So the future of photography. Thank you. This episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn Learning, which now features every course from lynda.com, the leader in online learning with 20 years of experience. LinkedIn Learning is for creators, for the curious, and for those who want to advance their career. Maybe you want to learn how to shoot RAW, how to work in low light, or sharpen your photo editing skills. Everything you need to achieve more is on LinkedIn Learning. Whether you shoot photos for work, for pleasure, or both, LinkedIn Learning can help you take your photography to the next level. Gear courses will help you get the most out of your camera, from DSLRs to mirrorless cameras to your smartphone. To help you enhance what you shoot, there's a complete coverage of Lightroom and Photoshop, including the Creative Cloud 2018. In fact, they work closely with Adobe to release updated courses the day new versions are released. Now, I've recently had a creative endeavor myself, the new podcast, The Future of Photography, and of course, we needed a logo for that. Now, this time I wanted to come up with something that would be kind of perfect, and to help me get into the right direction and look at this from the right perspective, I went to LinkedIn Learning and watched the course Learning Logo Design by Von Glitschke. And out of this 2.5 hour long course, I picked just a chapter about the design process, and it really helped me to go at this from the right angle. And I believe the logo has turned out really well, so I'm really happy with the results. With the LinkedIn Learning membership, you can quickly find the right video course for you from their extensive library, learn from industry experts who are passionate about teaching, explore course recommendations curated just for you, use project files and quizzes to validate your learning. The courses are structured so you can learn from start to finish, or jump to a specific chapter and watch shorter bite-sized segments just like I did. Each video also includes transcripts so you can watch, listen, or read along. LinkedIn Learning helps you learn at your own pace using the method you prefer, and there are no hidden charges or upsells. Access all courses you want, all for one monthly price. It's available worldwide, and you can learn from anywhere on your computer, tablet, or mobile device. And of course, we've got a special deal for you. You can get a free 30-day trial with LinkedIn Learning today by visiting linkedin.com/tips. That's linkedin.com/TIPS, all lowercase. Thank you for the support.
Hi Chris, this is Raja from Ireland. I have a quick question for you. If I want to upgrade to full frame camera, I use Nikon speedlights for my flash photography. So if I'm taking a photo of a large group, I need a lot of depth of field, maybe around f13 or f16 maybe. So when the depth of field is so high, and whether these normal speed lights power can be enough to handle the ISO at 200. Right now I'm using a crop frame camera, so I was able to happily handle the depth of field at f8 for a large group, or f9. With that, power is quite good actually from a speed light. But what I was thinking is, if I go to a full frame, the depth of field will be enormous. Thank you. I love your show. Keep doing the good work. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Raja. Full frame upgrade. Well, full frame. I'm a full frame fan, and I used my full frame camera mostly for wide angle stuff, and I have a crop camera, and that is for longer focal lengths, just because the crop of the sensor kind of supports that nicely. And also the full frame camera is a bit better in low light, and it's minor differences, but they're there. And of course, as you said, it does different things to depth of field. Full frame has more depth of field. And that's mainly because with full frame, you're shooting with different focal lengths to get the same angle of view, the same image angle. And different focal lengths do have different depths of fields. Now, your question, I think, is you have speed lights, you want to take group shots, which means which mean you have to have a certain level of depth of field because they're all not all standing side by side. You have them behind each other, so you will need a certain depth of field. And then so far, your speedlights were just fine doing this with a crop camera. I'm assuming you mean an APS-C camera with a 1.5 or 1.6 crop, which would be the norm here. And as those cameras with a bit smaller sensors have more depth of field, you would, you could just use the speedlights and have enough light for a larger group. Now, if you had a camera with more depth of field, that would, in order to get the same depth of field, you'd probably have to use a smaller aperture, which then might require you to use more power in your speedlights to get to the same result. And there's something to that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's really that much of a problem, to be honest. The depth of field on a full frame compared to an APS-C crop is higher. Yes, it's more depth of field. No, it's less depth of field. Sorry, I'm mixing this up. It's less depth of field, so you get more shallow depth of field. But it's not that much of a difference. Yes, there is a difference, but I'm not sure it's really as drastic as you describe it. I think you should try that out before you buy, but rent one. There are camera rental services that you can rent one from for a weekend and give it a try. I think that's the first thing I would do. Now, you might have to go to a slightly smaller aperture to get enough depth of field for the group to be all in focus. But full frame is also typically better when it comes to handling higher ISOs. So if you run into depth of field issues, you could also close down the aperture and raise the ISO a bit. And this way you could still shoot with the same power output in your speedlights that you did before. So that would be one way of handling the missing depth of field. But I would certainly go and rent one, borrow one, maybe go to the Tips from the Top Floor Slack, find someone nearby who has a full frame and experiment together. That's my suggestion. That was it for this episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thank you so much for being you, for being subscribed, for listening to the show. I wouldn't do this show without you. And of course, check out The Future of Photography with Adrian Stock and myself, a new podcast just out, The Future of Photography. If you want to send in a question for this show, just speak it into the voice memo app of your choice and send it to voice@tfttf.com. That's also true for gear questions. I'm still putting together a gear-centric episode before Christmas, and I would love to have your questions on there. Gear-related questions, send them to voice@tfttf.com. And of course, thanks again to all the amazing supporters. You're making all the difference. You can find out more at tfttf.com/support. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, Silent Partner, and Hans-Peter Kagrud. Publishing and Slack challenges by Release Pixie, Matt Rest, Armstead. Slack invitations by Chief Invitation Officer, CIO Russ. My name is Chris Marquardt. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter at Chris Marquardt, at Chris, Marquardt. And of course, go out and take amazing photos, be nice to each other, and happy shooting.